Recognition, power, and influence is your birthright, and this podcast shows you how to get there. Welcome to episode number 250. In today's episode, I am talking about a 4-letter word. This is a 4-letter word that I throw around all the time. But sometimes if you're somebody who has used this word, and that word is ally, at your organization, and you've got some mixed responses about building allies at your company proactively, there is a reason that this word is very off-putting to some, and I am telling you in this episode how you can begin to overcome that and make it work to your advantage instead. All right, let's get started. Welcome to Women Changing Leadership. I am your host, Stacy Mayer, and I teach you how to get promoted, get paid, and bring your whole self to the leadership table. I am on a mission to change organizations from the C-suite out, because women are the new face of leadership, and we are doing it on our terms. Hello, corporate badasses. Welcome to another episode of Women Changing Leadership. I am your host, Stacy Mayer, and super excited, as always, to be here with you again this week. Today's episode was inspired by a call that I had inside of my Leadership Table Mastermind. This is an incredible group of women that I have been working with anywhere from the last 6 months to 3 years for many of them, as a way to connect on a bi-weekly basis, share what's working for us, what's not working, and really giving tips and feedback to other women inside of the group at all different levels, from individual contributor all the way up to executive vice presidents. I am so honored to be leading this group, and these women come to me to seek advice and guidance on a regular basis. And if it's something that you're interested in, I really want to encourage you, one, if you haven't already started working with me one-on-one, get into my 2-month executive coaching package. This is a really accessible way to get started, to get some immediate feedback, and to solve what I call a big problem in a short amount of time. Go to stacymayer.com/apply to schedule a time to speak with me to see if that's a good fit. And if you're listening to this podcast and you've already worked with me in the past, whether it's through any of my courses, Executive Ahead of Time, maybe you've applied some of the work inside the book and you're ready to just jump right into the Leadership Table Mastermind, now is the time. And for the fall season, I am always due a big promotion offer because, the month of December is kind of a funky month and I want people to get started now. So I give you the month of December for free as part of that course, which means that it's the only time throughout the year where you actually get 7 months of one-on-one coaching with me for the cost of 6 months. So if that's something that you're interested in, definitely go to the same link, stacymayer.com/apply, and get on my calendar right away so you can take advantage of this opportunity. Now, let's talk about what came up at the last Leadership Table call. So October is Global Diversity Awareness Month, and one of the women shared as a win in our conversation that she was a representative for her organization to give a talk on this topic. And actually, recently, I was able to give a talk on this topic as well with the Athena organization, which is a global partnership for women in diversity in executive leadership. And we really talked about blending and merging that gap of global executive leadership. So not only are we breaking glass ceilings in our own territory, but we're really expanding to impact the global world. And so she was sharing how, as part of her talk, she was able to talk about the importance of allyship. And I think that's such an incredible topic. And I was really supportive of her ability to lead that conversation and to really, push the envelope in both for the women in the group to really think about how they can go out and get those allies, but for other executive leaders of influence, male or female, how they can be stronger allies for women and support more diversity globally as a result. So this is a fantastic conversation. And again, another caveat, I'm going off on lots of tangents, but just because I have so much to celebrate in my world, and I hope you do as well, and I want to show you what is truly possible. So This particular woman set out to give 5 talks throughout 2024. And this was through our coaching and really thinking about our goals for the year and what she wanted to accomplish. And she really wanted to, now that she is in a vice president position, hopefully soon to be senior vice president role, she really has been thinking a lot about how she wants to give back to the community and how she wants to support her ideas in the broader landscape of technology in particular. And she set out this goal to give 5 talks throughout 2024. Well, she surpassed that goal, midway through the year. And so then she doubled it to 10 talks. And this particular talk at her organization was already talk number 9. And she has talk number 10 booked before the end of the year. So I just want to applaud her for reaching that goal, and also to encourage you, especially as you start to get your promotions under control and you feel like you like the role that you're in and you're very proud and happy of what you've accomplished, to really start to think about what is the greater impact that I want to be making and how can I start sharing that thought leadership. So kudos, hats off to her for this conversation. Well, when she shared this win, I decided to open up the larger conversation about why are we as women, as the conversation around diversity and leadership, still having conversations about allyship. So again, I want to caveat that I'm so proud and glad that she brought up this topic, because so many women still don't understand the importance of having strong allies and supporters for their career. Like, let other people do the work for us. And in today's episode, I'm going to show you how to get them to do the work for us. We don't have to carry the entire burden of our own professional development, as well as to do our job well and to get promoted. That's not all on us. We can let other people pluck us out and give us opportunities. And there are specific things that we can do to set ourselves up for making that happen. So one of the things that occurs to me is I remember when Sheryl Sandberg first wrote Lean In. I mean, it's more than a decade, probably 15 years ago, maybe 20. I have to look up the exact date it was released. But her concept of having a sponsor rather than just a mentor, was mind-blowing for so many women. They were like, yes, that's so true. We can't just have mentors at our organization, people who give us advice. We need people to actually go out and sponsor us, to speak up for us, to endorse us for roles, to actually advocate on our behalf. And this is what my client was doing in her talk, was saying, hey, go out and get those allies, get that support. And then I brought up to our mastermind group of women that I really feel like this concept of allies is actually a 4-letter word, meaning that if you were to tell your boss that you want to have more allies at your organization, your boss might kind of look sideways or be like, I want to reach out to your boss because I want to get an ally. Now, if you've been following me for more than 5 minutes, that I have a trademarked concept that is unbelievably brilliant. If you don't know what this is, I'll link to some of the 15-minute allyship trainings inside the show notes. But it's called 15-minute ally meetings. It has the word ally in it. And one of the things that I like to remind my clients is that while that is what we're doing, we're going out and getting allies. We're scheduling the meeting with the boss's boss so that they become an ally for us, so that they can work for us, so that they can advocate on our behalf. We don't actually have to tell people that that's what we're doing, because it's still considered a 4-letter word. And if you want your boss to block your opportunity to meet with his boss or his boss's boss, say that you're meeting with them because you want them to be an ally. And he'll probably say, not right now, wait. Because even though this idea of allyship is so important for women in particular, it is still considered to be taboo, a little bit strange to actually say out loud. Now, if you go into your boss's head, your boss is actually also creating allies across the organization. That is something that they're actively doing. But I think the reason why we still need to have this conversation with women, 15, 20 years later, after Sheryl Sandberg started talking about having sponsors instead of just mentors, is because the people at the top do keep it hush-hush. They're not talking about the process that they're doing. They're just doing it. And so we as women think that, oh, they just got lucky, or they just were in the right place at the right time, or they just knew somebody, or isn't that great that that person advocated for them? But they were proactively going out and creating those allies. That is something that they were actually doing. They were doing 15-minute ally meetings. It probably looked a lot different than my concept, but it is the same thing. And so what I'm showing all of you through this podcast is like, look, let's pull back the curtain here and let's actually see what they're doing. And I want to encourage you to keep it to yourself. You don't have to tell other people that that's what you're doing, except for like other women, of course. And if you're giving a talk at an incredible panel, and if you're somebody like me who has a platform and is able to talk about it, but if somebody's going to treat allyship like a 4-letter word, don't tell them. You don't have to divulge all your secrets, but do it anyway. It is so important that we build allies. Now, as promised in today's conversation, I'm going to talk about how you can actually get those allies to do something for you. Let me talk a little bit more about sponsorship and why I personally call it allyship versus sponsorship. Is a lot of women take that concept like you have to have a sponsor and they make it singular. So it's one person who sponsors us or endorses us at the organization. And I hopefully don't have to say this out loud, but the big problem with that is that person could leave the organization. That person might have multiple people that they're sponsoring. That person might, not have actual influence at their company. That person, might get tired of sponsoring you. I don't know, but I don't want to rely on one person being the sole person that has control over my career. I want to have multiple allies. And when I think about allies, I think about more than one person, 5, 10 people who are advocating on our behalf. By advocating, I mean, it could just be like, have you considered inviting Cheryl to this meeting? She needs to be here. That is an ally. That's somebody that speaks up on our behalf. I had another client inside of the Leadership Table Mastermind who was having a conversation with one of the board members at her organization, and she was talking about this opportunity that she had been given to teach a percentage of a course. And the leader, the board member that she was talking to, he got very excited, and it really reminded him that, she needed to be in a higher level role. He's like, you know what? Why haven't you been promoted? She's like, hello, I agree. And so this is the power of allyship, is the 15-minute ally meeting is you could just be having a simple, everyday, casual coffee chat with somebody talking about something that you're proud of, but it clicks something in their head that says, wait, what's happening with your career? Why hasn't your boss promoted you yet? Right. So then she had this very good conversation about putting together a proposal for a promotion. And what she did is she actually followed up with him later after talking to me that she needed to go back to him and actually ask him to go to her boss and say, hey, I think we need to promote this woman. Now, that's where the real allyship, that's when people start speaking up on our behalf. We can, and we have the ability to genuinely ask them, hey, do you mind telling her? Because I think if she hears it from me, it's going to be very different than if she hears it from you. That goes a long, long way. And so don't be ashamed to have to actually ask that person to speak up on your behalf. It can be anywhere from, speaking up for a promotion, speaking up for you to say, hey, I think she should be in this meeting, speaking up for you to say, hey, I didn't appreciate what you said about her. That's not true. She was very heavily involved in this particular project. Whatever that might be for you, really encouraging your allies to actually own it. One of the things, so I talked about how we don't have to tell everybody that these people are allies or that I'm meeting with this person to get them to be my ally, and how that's probably not overall useful. But once you actually build that relationship with that person, and by building that relationship, it could literally be like 1 or 2 ally meetings. It doesn't take that long to really build that trust. And especially if you use the formula that I have created, with 15-minute ally meetings. It's literally designed to build trust in a very short amount of time. In under 15 minutes, one conversation, you can build trust with that executive leader. In the second or third conversation, that's when you can start asking them for support. You can say something to them like, I consider you to be a strong ally of mine. I am aware that I need allies, or I am a woman of color, and if I don't have allies like you, so this sounds so obvious to actually point out, but it goes such a long way. What we're reminding that executive of is their power to influence my career, their power to give back. Now, when I go back to my original conversation about my client who has that strong desire to give back to her organization and to give back to her industry as a thought leader, and really to give those 10 talks throughout 2024, if somebody said that to her, hey, you're my ally, if you speak up for me, it's going to go a long way, she would be honored. She would pick up that phone so fast, especially if she liked the person, especially if she was actually behind the person. She would say, oh my God, you're right. I should really call them. And, it's nice if they think of it on their own. That's great. But it doesn't actually matter. You still get the result that you want, even if you have to actually push that person, it's not even pushing. It's encouraging them. It's offering them. You're giving them such a gift. So, really, as we start to think about allies and understand how we're using our allies to support our careers, it's important to remember that left in the wrong context, don't tell people that you're actively going out and finding allies all across the company. But, hey, that's what you're doing. And then once you actually get that ally, make sure that you actually tell them that they are your ally, that they are your supporter, and thank them for that. So that is the loop of allyship, and that's how we can begin to really use it for ourselves so that we can create more and more opportunities. And when we get that power, when we empower ourselves, when we empower other people to speak up on our behalf. How many of you have wanted to get LinkedIn recommendations for somebody, and maybe you wrote it for them? And you said, hey, can you do a LinkedIn recommendation? They said, yeah, why don't you write up a few sentences for me? I'll take a look and then I'll post it for you. There's nothing wrong with that. People have been doing this to get into college for centuries, right? This is something that is part of collaboration, influencing behavior. It's something that people do on a regular basis. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And then you have to remember that that executive leader is not going to do anything that they don't actually want to do. They're not going to sign their name to something. They're not going to endorse you if they don't feel like endorsing you. But you have the right to ask for it. You have the right to say, hey, would you be willing to do this for me? And, here's what I would like you to emphasize. When you start to take that proactive approach, it also shows your sponsor or ally that you can walk the talk, that you are ready for that next level of leadership, that you're willing to put yourself out there, that you are somebody who will take a bold risk, that has a strategy for their career so that they have someone that they can get behind that they can also feel proud of. So listening to today's episode, I would love for you to start thinking about who are those allies for you? And if you've already built that trust and already built those relationships, what can you ask them to do on your behalf? It can be simple and small, like, invite me to that meeting or suggest that I join that meeting or call on me in that meeting. Or it can be big, like go to my boss and say that I should be promoted. Whatever that might be, there is something that you can begin to ask your ally to do for you. And I almost guarantee that that person is going to be thrilled to do it. They'll be honored to do it. Let me know how that conversation goes. You can direct message me on LinkedIn. I would absolutely love to hear from you. And otherwise, I hope to see you soon inside of the Leadership Table, both my Leadership Table Mastermind and in the actual Executive Leadership Table, so that you can begin to get that recognition, power, and influence that you already deserve. All right. Thank you all so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. Bye. you go, I have a question for you. Do you know how close you are to your next promotion? Really? Not what your boss has told you, not what you even believe to be true, but have you actually taken the time to sit down, take an assessment, review the 5 categories that it takes to get promoted into senior executive leadership positions, and decided where you fall in each category, and given yourself a ranking on a scale of 1 to 10 of how close you are to getting your next promotion? Have you done this? Well, now's your chance. If that feels interesting to you and you're like, hey, I want to know exactly how close I might actually be, or how far away you might be, and what it's going to take to get you even closer, then I invite you to take my promotability quiz. This is a quiz that I put together with practical tips that actually tell you where you're lacking and where you're winning. What are the areas that you actually need to improve, and not necessarily what your boss is telling you all the time, so that you can take concrete steps towards landing that next promotion and changing the face of the leadership table. Go to yourpromotabilityscore.com to take your free assessment today.